All right. Hey, helpers. How you doing today? Hope you're having a good holiday week. So I decided I wanted to try something new. So I love chess, and I recently got back into playing chess.com, and it reminded me of how much I love chess. I grew up playing chess a lot, and a lot by myself as a kid. Um, I was born in the early 80s, so we didn't have iPads or anything, but we had these cool little chess boards that had a computer at the top, and it would give you the coordinates for where you would put your chess piece, and you'd move, this piece to A16 or whatever. And so I clocked a lot of time alone, especially because I grew up on the road playing chess. And I really recently fell back in love with playing chess again. So I discovered chess.com, and maybe you're familiar with it, but I thought how fun it would be to do some live streams, kind of a regular thing here on the channel, talking about chess because it's and therapy, because this channel is all about the art and business of therapy. And so I thought, how cool would it be if we could draw some analogies and also have some fun? If you like chess like I do, you have fun watching me play. If you love playing chess, you can jump on and play with me. And I'll show you how to do that if you have any interest. I'm not a chess expert, but I am a mental health professional. So while I may not be able to, I'm not a grandmaster or anything at chess, and you'll see me lose a lot, I'm sure. Um, I will be able to provide some hopefully good insights on the practice of mental health, especially if you're a new therapist, you're in graduate school to be a therapist, and you're looking for some tactics, some strategies to really help our clients and serve them at our best. You could also, maybe you're a seasoned therapist and you're looking to scale your business of therapy, find ways to create passive income or have more impact. Can certainly talk about that too. But this will be fun. It's just casual. If you want to jump on and watch me play, we can go for it. Let me go ahead and share my screen here with you. 1 second. All right. There we go. So you should see this. This is chess.com. So we're going to jump on here. I have this little Instagram tab open too because, let's see, I'll go ahead and go live. Because I can't really see the comments on Instagram on StreamYard. I don't think they come in, so I might have to minimize that. All right, so this is chess.com, and again, if you have any interest in jumping on with me, all you have to do is look up my user profile here at MentalFixLCSW, and you can challenge me to a game. I'm not that good, so, be nice. And you can't help me. So if you see a move, you can't jump into the chat and then say like, hey, you missed that or do this or that. That's cheating. So you can't give me any pointers, but it is fun. I know chess is definitely a spectator sport. It's fun to watch. It's fun to play. And as I was just sharing before I went live on Instagram, it's something I recently fell back in love with through chess.com. Played a lot on my own as a kid on the computer and stuff. And so it's just really cool. And there's a lot of through lines, a lot of analogies with the work of therapy and the work we do, and really the life lessons we learn by playing chess. Kind of like Tetris, right? Chess teaches us a lot of skills, and there's a lot of things we can draw from it in the work that we do. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump in. I'll show you how chess.com works. You can go right here to just play. I usually do 10-minute rounds, play online, and there we go. So you should say start new. I usually do 10-minute rounds. They're pretty quick, so if you jump on with me, if it's too fast, we could always slow it down. All right, but I hope everyone's having a good holiday week. We're gonna go ahead and jump on, and I'm just gonna chat a little bit. This is just a chess chat. Just gonna talk a little bit about what comes to mind on the side of mental health and the art and business of therapy. If you have any questions, please do jump in the chat and just let me know. Okay, all right. I'm gonna start a new game here. See, it's pretty quick, just like that. We have a challenger. So chess is interesting because it's a lot like therapy in the sense that it's not just about strategy, but it's also about tactics, right? So that's kind of the first point is if you're thinking about chess and therapy, right? That's the first connection we can make. And that is that strategy is more like long-term treatment planning. Long-term treatment plans, what we want to do with a client, we have an idea based on what we learn about them and what we'd like to see happen, but things change. Therapy is very fluid. Tactics would be more like your interventions that you do in therapy, right? Your long-term strategy might be to reduce a client's depression. A short-term intervention might be mood scales or mood tracking or mood diary, whatever you want to call it. I use quick mood scales. I actually have a free handout on that on the website if you want to grab it. I pinned in the comments the website where you can grab free therapy handouts that I make for your practice if you want to check that out. That's mhtgear.com. But mood tracking would be like an example of an intervention you would use as opposed to a long-term strategy, because then you can draw a lot of other information from that intervention. So that's kind of the first point when we're thinking about the analogies we can draw from chess and therapy would be the difference between strategies and tactics. Like, I have a long-term strategy, how I think I would like this game to go, but then I also have my understanding, and I'm a realist, and I know that it's probably not going to go the way I think it's going to go. And that's the beautiful thing about chess. You never ever know kind of what the other person is going to play like, and so that's what keeps chess unique and fresh. No matter how many times you play or who you play it with, it's always kind of new and interesting, right? So that's pretty cool, I think. It's one of the reasons I love chess. And you can be playing with the same person for 20 years and they could decide to change things up on you. And you're like, whoa, didn't see that coming, right? So that is kind of the first thing I would like to make a correlation to, is just the strategy and tactics. The other thing I'd like to mention is kind of the way it starts and stops, right? So we have a opening game, a middle game, and an end game. And we can kind of draw some ties to therapy in that sense. When we start therapy, we have the same, you see my opening moves here, brought my pawns out, brought my bishops out, my knight, everything like that. And you can see how that works, right? So I might have the same opening moves, or I might kind of like, or like any sports, I guess, my opening plays, if you want to think of it that way. Everybody kind of has an opening play and their typicals, and then it kind of morphs from there into mid-game. And we're kind of getting into mid-game now. You see they've crossed my threshold here. I am now trying to decide what's my next best move. Things are getting a little more complicated. It's getting a little more messy. It's like that a lot in therapy too. In therapy, you'll see like you'll start the certain general process. So I just took his queen. That was a big mistake on his part. So like in therapy, right? So you have your intake assessment and you go through the intake process and it's pretty predictable. But after you're a few sessions in, it stops being so predictable, right? And that's a lot how therapy works. And so there's the opening, the mid game, and the end game. End game is more like the termination phase. That's even though as new therapists, we're always taught, hey, you start talking about termination session 1, right? When it comes to therapy, think of termination though as like the third phase. So there's really 3 phases to therapy. If you want to think of a fourth phase would be like maintenance treatment, I guess. Maintenance treatment kind of comes before termination, I guess. Or maybe it's both. It's not always that cut and dry. As you're getting into therapy, if you're new to therapy, you'll see it's not like a one size fits all. It's like, oh, 8 sessions and we're done. No, it's not that formulaic. It could be 8 sessions. It could be 10 years. It could be touch and go. It could be 8 sessions, take a break. Life happens, gets messy again. They come back. They want to work on something else, even totally different. You do another 8, 16 sessions of something else. And that's a lot of what therapy is. You know, it's a lot of that touch and go. So, but in general, you'll learn there's 3 phases to therapy. Opening, middle, and end. But just like in chess, most of the work is done mid-game. That's where things can go. That's where you see a lot of the magic happen, right? That's how you really turn the table in your favors, right? So it's pretty exciting stuff if you think about chess that way. The other correlation I want to make is thinking several moves ahead, right? So as I'm looking at the board, even as we get into mid-game here, I'm not just thinking about my next best move. I'm thinking about my next best 10 moves, right? That's about as far ahead as I can think, especially on a 10-minute clock. I'm probably going to run out of time because I'm talking, but that's okay. So we're thinking about our next 10 moves, right? And what we can do here. So if I take his knight, what happens next? What's he likely going to do, right? So I'm already thinking I'm going to take his knight, and then I might position myself to take his rook. If he sees me trying to take his rook, he's going to move his rook. Then I can get my queen in behind my other black bishop and try and checkmate him. So I'm thinking about if I do this, then that. If this, then that. And that's a lot of what therapy is. We're trying to think, if I do this intervention, how's my client going to react? What are the pros and cons? Worst case scenario, what could go wrong? Sorry, my throat's a little scratchy. Drinking a beet juice, which is awesome, my favorite. But I have water too. So yeah, he moved his rook, which is fine. I'm still trying to get in there and see what I can do. All right, so therapy is a lot about thinking ahead, right? If I do this, then how could that benefit the client? Because we only have so much time, right? We only have 50 minutes, sometimes less, with a client. And again, we don't want to be over formulaic, but at the same time, we do want to have a game plan, right? A game plan a few moves ahead about, okay, so I'm going to start with some mood tracking after we do the intake and the treatment planning, and then we'll work on identifying thoughts and then how those thoughts influence behaviors, what kind of patterns that creates for a client, what kind of distress, what kind of patterns we can break. After we work on identifying thoughts and feelings and thinking about them as separate things, then we might start talking about how we can work on core beliefs and how those core beliefs affect our rules and assumptions about how the world works. And once we get that kind of squared away, then we can start talking about relationships and what relationships they want to improve. And then we can start talking about other things like behavioral activation and how we can get them back involved in the world, right? I moved my pawn up here because he's going to try and come down here and somehow corner me, but that's not going to happen if I have an escape. Anyway, so hopefully, if you find this kind of chat helpful, let me know. But feel free to jump into the comments if you have any questions about the art of therapy, anything that comes up for you in your practice, what you would like to kind of chew on with me. And if I don't know, I don't know. But that's the great thing about having a community like this is we can think together, we can mastermind about it, and something I don't know, and etc. And we can help each other out in the community here. So always feel free to jump in and support each other. That's what it's for. Okay. So if you're on Instagram, I can't see your screen because I have it minimized, but feel free to jump over on the YouTube channel if you want to comment. Sorry about that. There's only so many things I can juggle at once playing chess here. All right, so he moved his bishop up there. I'm going to go ahead and bring my knight up here. Oh, I see he brought his pawn over. All right, well, open up my queen. Now I can start to move, right? I'm going to put him in check up here. And I'm going to take his rook. So that right there is a split. That's actually something called, what I just did to him. It's kind of like a Zegwing. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But what I did is I just sacrificed my pawn to get him up there. And that's another thing when we think about sacrificing a piece. Sometimes in therapy, we sacrifice, I don't know if you want to call it a value or a specific tolerance, but for example, you have a client who is really upset, has a lot of anger issues. You might allow them to scream and yell a little bit or express their anger in session, even if that's something you're not traditionally comfortable with, in order to build that rapport, right? To create that safe space for them. So that would be an example of sometimes, like in chess, we sacrifice a piece sometimes to open up the board so we can position ourselves. And therapy is sometimes like that too. A lot of it's about positioning, right? Because we're trying to figure out how we can best get at the client's schema. And the client is used to people responding a certain way. Think of the therapy room as kind of like a microcosm. It mimics a lot of what the client is already experiencing out in the world. And so what we're trying to do, to a large extent, is help them drop their guard, drop their walls. And if we even unintentionally come out with a sense of judgment, right, based on their behavior, and we're not careful, then those walls go right back up, because then now we're just like everybody else and we're judging them. So that's why we got to be careful, in this space, that we're doing our best to not come off as too judgmental. That sometimes that means sacrificing time in therapy, because as a new therapist, you might feel like you're in a rush. Oh man, it's already been 8 sessions and I'm just not getting anywhere with this client. They just want to talk and tell stories and I feel like we're not getting any work done, but trust the process, because for a lot of clients, that talking is the rapport building and it's absolutely essential. That's why I said we got to be careful and not so formulaic about how we're addressing therapy and how we're thinking about what a course of therapy should look like. And so, like I said, it may, in a textbook might look 8 to 16 sessions of CBT, but in reality, if you're dealing with a lot of complex issues or personality disorders or cultural aspects, it can certainly take a lot longer than what we think to build those bridges. And we don't necessarily know the seeds that we're planting until, again, mid game, right? We start to see that come to fruition. So something to think about. And that's what we're talking about, positional advantage. We're thinking long term in order to position ourselves for building that therapeutic alliance, that rapport. It's very, very important, and it cannot be rushed. And I can't overstate that, especially if you're new to therapy. You cannot rush the therapeutic alliance. It is absolutely, absolutely crucial. Okay, but I hope you find that helpful. And I'm actually impressed with how I'm doing right now because, oh man, I can't believe I just did that. See, I spoke too soon. I said I can't believe I didn't make a mistake while I'm talking and trying to play at the same time, and I just lost my queen. So there you go. But that's okay. I'm still winning. We'll get there. I just have 3 minutes on the clock, so we'll see what happens with that. What do you think he's gonna do? He's thinking. He's like, do I go up there to take his pawn? What am I gonna do? So, but don't worry. You see my white bishop down here? I can move him up and then I can block it. I just, I think, yeah, I have more pawns than him. I think I'll be okay. It's just going to be a tight game. He's going to try and bleed the clock on me now. But therapy is very much that way. It's about building that therapeutic alliance. And a lot of the research shows, oh, okay, I just won because he left me alone. I'm going to get another queen. You're in check. Let's see. Check again. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do this so I can take his rook. Check. Okay, check. Oh, I see what he's doing there. So we're going to go like this, check. He's going to have to give up his rook now because he has nowhere else to go. And that's checkmate. Hey, not bad, right? My first live stream chess chat, and I was able to multitask, so I'm kind of impressed with myself. So that's cool. Pat on the back. That was fun. So that was, that was our chess chat. A couple other things I wanted to point out is that other than positional advantage, there's the concept, and I'm probably going to slaughter this term, but Zugzwang, something like that. But basically, it's a situation where you get, like in chess, like what I did to him right now is I forced him to give up his rook because he had no other move. It's when you feel cornered, right? You feel like there are no good options. And that's how a lot of clients will come to us in therapy. Oftentimes they'll wait to come to therapy until they feel like they can no longer figure it out on their own because any move they make feels like a bad move and they don't really know where to go from there. And they come to us feeling very stuck. So keep that in mind when you're working with new clients, that this is kind of the mental state they're coming from, which is why building that therapeutic alliance and taking time with it is so important, because we just don't know what we don't know. And it's going to take time for them to share their lived experience with us for us to get an idea what it's like to live in their shoes before we can really offer any feedback and help them ask the right questions to get the right answers for themselves, right? Because we know the truth already lies usually within them if they're willing to take the time to ask the hard questions. But a lot of the times, people don't know the right questions to ask or the best questions to ask, and that's what therapy is all about, right? So last thing I'll say is the importance of protecting your king. In this example, he didn't do a very good job of protecting his king. He got him exposed too early. That's why I was able to get to him. See, my king down here is nice and tucked away, right? But in therapy, we have to be careful that we protect our king. That's us. That's self-care. If we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't plan ahead to make sure we have some hedges around us, Kind of like I do with my king, I make sure there's some pawns and other pieces hedged around him so that it would take several pieces from the other person to threaten my king. We have wiggle room, and that's how we want to make sure we're taking care of ourselves in therapy as therapists, um, to make sure our cup is full, right? That self-care piece, because if we don't, then we burn out, and then we're no good to anybody, and that's checkmate, right? When we burn out, that's checkmate. It's going to take a long time for us to bounce back from that. So ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Just a little food for thought. And I hope you found this chess chat very helpful. I'll be doing more of these. And again, if you ever want to jump on, you can just go and search for me while we're doing this. Like if I went to MentalFixLCSW, look, I'll pop right up. Should pop up. Yep, there I am. And you can challenge me just like that. If you want to play around with me, and we don't have to do it on a 10-minute clock. If you want, we can do it on a whatever clock. But anyway, I want to try and do these pretty regularly, if not every day, because I play chess anyway every day, pretty much is how I decompress these days. So it'll be fun. We'll do more of this. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll be sure to get to those next time. Yeah, other than that, I hope you have a great holiday, great 4th of July, and everybody take care now. All right. Bye-bye.